Hey, so warm welcome to everybody for this session of the Ultimate Coach book reading. Today we are looking at chapter 21, Byron Katie, and we have got guest reader Tanya Alvarez with us, which I'm really super excited about. And as we let a few more people in the room, just like to take a moment to acknowledge Amy Hardison and Alan D. Thompson for their commitment and for their dedication in creating the Book of Being. We also want to acknowledge Steve Hardison also for the impact and the example of being that he is for all of us and for everyone that actually he crosses paths with. So I was so excited for today. It's an absolutely huge thank you for Tanya for reading this chapter. I know that we are in for a treat today with Tanya, as I'm not going to reveal anything. I'm going to wait for Tanya to reveal, but I know that this chapter is just going to be an amazing one for everybody. So Tanya, thank you so much for saying yes to reading today's chapter. And this event is a created space, coordinated by the Tuck team. Thank you everybody for being here. And we are creating a deeper experience of the book to dive further into exploring not just the book, but also being in community as well. So as we begin today, I would love for you to have a think about, rather than sharing into the chat, this is something for you to have a think about and write down for yourself. Do you have a particular thought that creates suffering for you? So have a little think, have a ponder. Do you have a thought that comes up that perhaps it's a pattern or a repetitive thought that creates suffering, any kind of internal suffering for you? It's possible you may have more than one. If you do, that's absolutely fine. Just write it down. And I just invite everybody just to pause for a moment and consider what that might be and write it down for yourself. And then with that thought, do you know for a fact that that thought is 100% true? Again, just write down for yourself, for you, whether that thought is 100% true. And as we go through the reading today, you can look closer and reflect on what you've written down. So, as we go on, I just want to take a moment before I pass over to acknowledge each and every one of you for your energy, your effort, and for whatever it is that you have needed to do and to arrange for you to be able to be here with us today. Your presence is valued in this co-creative space. And Steve offers us to consider the intention for this book reading is to expand our state of being. So while acknowledgements of one another are really powerful, we also request that you just share about you. And if you feel acknowledged, or if you feel, called to acknowledge anybody, that we invite you to reach out to them directly via the Tuck Facebook group and use it as an opportunity to deepen your connections. So as a gentle reminder, we request that when you read, you listen about you. And when it comes time to share about you. And as is so beautifully stated by Byron Katie, and we're going to be hearing so much more from Byron Katie, all we experience about anyone else is just the idea that we have of them. So please be aware that as you're sharing, and you were perhaps starting to share from an idea of somebody, not you, may we lovingly guide you back to sharing about you. So with that in mind, I'm going to pass you over to Maria. So Maria, over to you.
All right, if I can figure out the technology, we're good to go. Hello, everyone. So glad you're here today. Of course, just as we start talking, my dogs decide to bark. So I apologize. I have 3 Chihuahuas. There's no stopping them. You cannot stop them barking once they start. So my apologies if you hear that in the background. First of all, I want to say thank you to Tanya for reading for us today. Tanya is actually somebody who I know to be a practicer of the Byron Katie methods of a being, and she's introduced me to some of the topics and the process, the work, and it's been a big blessing in my life. Today, I was going to listen to the first 10 chapters of Loving What Is, and I got through about 42 minutes and had to stop because I wanted to journal so much. So, anyways, I'm excited for today and the shares, and so happy that all of you are here today. Let's see, who has their book? I had an avalanche. Everybody have their book here today? Yeah. Do we have anybody new? I don't think so. Is anybody here new? No, I recognize everybody. Okay, so we are looking for readers. Front and back of the book. Are there any volunteers, or I'll just pick you? Ah, Epek, you are definitely up. And David. All right, so Epek, could you read the back of the book for us? Thank you, my darling. And David, would you read the first few pages? Thank you, thank you. And thank you for volunteering so quickly. All right, so let's see. So we all know the flow, which is back of the book, front of the book. Tanya, jump right in. I know you know that. And then after that, we'll go to sharing. All right, so thank you so much, and take it away, Eva. Can we unmute? Thanks, Tanya.
Okay, good. Thank you. Dear potential reader, as you may have noticed, there are no testimonials on the back cover of this book imploring you to read it. I vetoed that. The only testimonial I am interested in is the one you will have from reading and experiencing this book. Please do not read this book about me. Read this book about you. Read it about being. As you read, ask yourself, who would I need to be a more loving person? Who would I need to be a more effective parent? Who would I need to be to create a level of confidence that is remarkable? Who would I need to be at peace with who I am? Who would I need to be fully in love with myself and my life? Who would I need to be to live the most extraordinary life I can live? I promise you that if you read this book with the intention of expanding your state of being, you will do exactly that. Your experience will be remarkable. Who you are being is everything. Loving you, be blessed, be you. Steve Hardison.
Before you begin, I never wanted to write a book, and I haven't. I never wanted to have a book written about me, but here it is. This book is a gift from my wife, Amy, who wrote it, and my friend Alan D. Thompson, who conducted the research and interviews on which it is based. It's not just a gift to me, but to you too. And now you're reading it. So with your permission, I'll give you some suggestions on how to read it. You see, this isn't an ordinary book. It's not simply a biography. It's not a self-help book. It's not a literary classic. It's definitely not a book about how to coach. In fact, it's not a book about doing anything. It's a book about being. And it's a book about you. To access this book, ask yourself these questions as you read. Who am I being as a partner, parent, or friend? Who am I being as a leader? Who am I being as a member of my community? Who would I need to be to have miracles show up in my daily life? Who would I need to be to create value in the work I do? Who would I need to be to generate a life of abundance? Who would I need to be to alter my relationship with fear? Who would I need to be at peace with my past? Who would I need to be to step powerfully into my future? Who would I need to be present as a way of being? Who would I need to be to live the most extraordinary life I can live? Who would I need to be to know that my life makes a difference? Who would I need to be fully in love with myself and my life? Who would I need to be to improve my relationships with the most important people in my life? Who would I need to be to read The Ultimate Coach and have a personal breakthrough in being wonderful me? The best part about this book about you, is that it is endless. The story goes on, and it's written by your being. Loving you, be blessed, be you, Steve Hardison.
Chapter 21, Byron Katie. First, before I get started, I just want to acknowledge Byron Katie and thank her for the work that she has done and that she has created through the inquiry and through the work. It has literally shifted and changed my entire life, and it continues to do so every time I apply it. So thank you, Byron Katie. Amy lives the adage. So many books, so little time. She always has a long list of books to read and a shelf of a shelf or two of books she has already purchased and is hoping to get to. When her sister Melinda gave her Loving What Is by Byron Katie for her birthday in December of 2005 and told her it was the most powerful book she had ever read, Amy catapulted it to the top of her queue. As soon as she finished it, she handed it to Steve, saying, "This book bent my mind. You're going to love it." He devoured it. After Steve read Loving What Is twice, he got on the internet to find out more about Katie. He learned she was coming to Phoenix in a couple of weeks. Steve and Amy rearranged their schedules to be there. The stage was sparse, just 2 comfortable chairs and a small table with fresh flowers. The event began at 7 p.m. Sans puffy introduction. Katie simply walked out and said, "Who's ready to do the work?" 100 hands went up. For 2 hours, Steve and Amy observed people who grappled with titanic troubles, a mother whose son was schizophrenic, a woman in a toxic marriage, another with multiple sclerosis, a man with cancer, a woman who, as a child, had been locked in an attic for days at a time by her parents. Katie invited each of them to the stage and into the chair. She walked them through her signature 4 questions for defusing stressful thoughts. Katie's words were peppered with, "Oh, sweetheart." Her eyes twinkled. As Katie went through the inquiry process, she did not simply ask her 4 questions. She had a conversation in and around and between the questions. It was in these conversations that Katie's humor and immense love beamed. It was in the conversations that the principles of the work were explicated. It was in the conversations that Katie said the following: "We see thoughts as unwanted children. We medicate them down. We meditate them down. We chocolate them down. What if we met them and embraced them? Except for your thinking, you're just fine. If I take off all my clothes and my husband screams, he has a problem. I hope he works on that." That's reality. We don't have to like it. When I think this shouldn't be, I'm at war with reality. And it feels terrible. Steve was enthralled. Once again, he found himself in the presence of a master. As the event finished, Steve knew he wanted more. In asking around, he learned about Katie's 9-day School of You. Their participants experienced the work more intensely from morning till night. The next school was in 2 weeks. For Amy, that was a deal breaker. Steve was determined to be there and move mountains to make it happen. Amy decided not to be left behind. 14 days later, Steve and Amy flew to Los Angeles. 10 days later, they flew home. What Steve experienced changed his life. He was on fire. If Steve believes in something, he shares. When Steve really believes in something, he shares big. Over the course of the next 2 years, Steve put on 3 events in Phoenix and 1 in Salt Lake City, Utah, where Katie came and did the work. These were not fireside chats, but major events. Each required months of organizing, coordinating, and sharing. Steve was a whirlwind of energy. On the morning of September 16th, 2006, Steve arrived early in the Phoenix Civic Plaza. He stood in front of the stage and took it all in. Steve was emotional. Katie's personal assistant tapped him on his elbow and brought him out of his reverie. She guided him to the green room where Katie and her husband, Stephen Mitchell, were waiting. Soon, like a bride with her father, Katie put her arm into Steve's and he escorted her to the stage. The morning session broke early for lunch. Thanks to an errant fire alarm, Steve and Katie snuck away to a small local eatery where they found a quiet corner in the back. "What would you like to talk about?" she began. "Katie, I don't need to talk about anything. I just like being with you. You don't need to entertain me. We don't need to talk at all." She smiled. She touched him on the arm and said, Oh, sweetheart, we know we both love to talk. Let's talk. What do you want to talk about? Two great minds, two great hearts, an ordinary lunch, and a magnificent hour. Steve has shared Katie's work with hundreds, probably thousands of people. He has enrolled many of his clients into Katie's 9-day school of you. He himself has attended it twice. Steve and Amy have frequently participated in the New Year's cleanses. They do the work. Little wonder that one day Steve received a phone call. A formal voice on the other end of the line said, "Do you have a moment?" "Sure." There was a click. A new voice came on the phone. "Hello, sweetheart. How are you?" Steve knew immediately. It was Katie. "I love the story you have of me," she said. "And I love the story you have of you. I have of you." For Katie, that is the most accurate way possible to express love.
Thank you so much. There's just so much in that chapter. I feel like my mind is whirling. Thank you. Thank you, readers. I said it last time I was hosting this, but I truly love hearing other people read the front and the back of the book. So I thank you for that, because you express so much of yourself and your thoughts. I'm a theater teacher, so kind of pick apart things like that, and that's just kind of how I hear. But people emphasize things that are important to them in their wording, in the way they talk. So I always appreciate how other people read those parts, because it isn't necessarily how I read it. And so thank you, both of you, front and back of the book, just beautiful. And Tanya, thank you. Your voice is so soothing and lovely, and I just feel just full of joy. So thank you so much for that. I really, really appreciate you, honey. All right, so now is my favorite time. Well, I don't know, every part's my favorite time, but I do love the sharing. And so, Epep, I would love to start with you.
Thank you, Maria. So Byron Katie, she's a goddess to me. She's so amazing, and her work is so life-changing indeed. And it changed my life too, just like many of you here, most probably. And you might have noticed that I read slowly. And because I want to really inhale, really devour the words. And the work of Byron Katie is another way of slowing down to me. She, with the 4 questions, she really, literally slows me down on my tracks and start thinking, is this true? Is this a fact? Am I 100% sure that this thought is a fact? Because she reminds me time and time again that, hold on a second, thoughts are not facts. And it's up to you to choose to make them a reality or not. So it is really, it made a huge difference in my life, and in anyone's life whom I introduced to her work or books. So this is, and it's not a surprise that Steve and Byron Katie are so aligned, because their work, their perspectives are so aligned too. And I feel myself so fortunate to have found them throughout my life, and keep learning from them both. So it's a pleasure and honor. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ipek. I think I can really completely resonate with what you're saying about like having this amazing tool that you can catch those thoughts. And the more you catch them, the more you catch them, right? The more skilled you become at catching those thoughts. And I love the inquiry, the questions. Is that 100% true? And even if you say, I don't know, then it isn't, right? So, I mean, I think there's just really beautiful things in that. So thank you so much. I really resonated with it shared. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, Mr. David, what are your thoughts on this chapter?
A few. One, I want to start with when I read something, I try to embody and be what I'm reading, because that's part of this whole process. And if I can look on the page and know what I'm saying, I can look directly into the camera and say it, even though a lot of you are looking at the book. That's okay. But I try to say it with meaning rather than just read it like I'm reading a recipe book or a phone book, but to have that expressed. And Byron Katie, you know, her work, I've seen it. I've watched her work. I haven't done the work as much. I know the questions. I've done it sort of, a truncated version for myself on occasion, and I know that there's a lot of work for me to do with her. But what struck me here is something that I struggle with myself. I have a sense of arrogance in me, and I work on that. I am working to be present, to be on the same plane as somebody. Oftentimes I say, okay, do you really know more than I do? Or am I really, do I have something to teach you, or do you have something to teach me? Steve has something to teach me. I look to him. Okay, you're my mentor. I listen. Okay, you got this. Byron Katie is that way too, I'm sure. And most of the time, people are either superior, inferior, or equal. And this is the hard part, to be really present with the person across from me, speaking about me. And because sometimes I'm like, okay, you're trying to show me something that you know, show me that you know more than I do, if you're trying to do that. But being present, something I do with coaching, although with coaching, I am the professional. So I'm kind of here by default. What was interesting is that last vignette about after the smoke alarm. And Katie sounds to me like she was saying, what do you want to talk about? You know, she was the professional. She was going to turn Steve around. And Steve said, we don't need to talk about anything. I just like being with you. You don't need to entertain me. We don't need to talk much about all. Present, together. And then she said, we both know we love to talk. What do you want to talk about? So then they talked here. They didn't talk here or here. They talked here. She started out the way she often does. She's at a she's presenting. She says, what do you want to talk about? How can I help you? And Steve says, you don't need to do that. We can just be present together. And he said, okay. She said, okay, we both like to talk. As present, how would we do that? Let's just talk. And that, to me, was gold, because they weren't, she wasn't trying to help him. He wasn't trying to help her, which is their natural being thing, but they were both being together with each other. And to me, that was really gold, and I appreciated that. And I said, this is very, you know, they were peers, they were equals, they were together on the same plane, and that was really, really nice to see. Nice to see that they both had the ability to just be with each other, and I appreciated that. I like that. All right. I think I'm complete.
Thank you so much. That was beautiful. You know, that is the thing, to just be with someone, to just listen and really hear what they're saying. I value that more and more all the time, as a teacher, as a friend, as a stranger, you know. I thank you for that, David. It is just about being together. Beautiful. Thank you so much. All right, Miss Tanya, I would love to hear your thoughts on this.
Thank you, Maria. Thank you, EPEC and David, for reading. As I mentioned before, Byron Katie has really impacted my life. What I love about Byron Katie is that when you do the work, it really allows you to go in and end your own suffering. If there's anything or a particular thought that you have held on to, or a judgment of yourself or someone else that has has given you, that then you hold on to that thought and you suffer from it. And when doing your own turnaround from that thought, I believe it's really a prescription for your own peace and freedom. And that has been a place for me that I really wanted to explore, because when I hold on to a thought that's not serving me into my greatness, then who do I become? Who am I being in that moment? And I recognize my tendencies are to withdraw, alienate, suffer. I feel frustrated at times. I feel judged. And so in doing this work, and it's so beautiful that I have this opportunity right now, because I just got back from like a 1,300-mile road trip with my family in the car, and visiting various family members through the weekend. So it's really also gives an opportunity to apply the work, because what I realize is that there are some people that really love to play. And in their playfulness, sometimes you might receive it as being a judgment. And in that judgment, how do you receive that judgment? And so every time I experienced that on this trip, it gave me the opportunity to do the inquiry again and to really go a little deeper with that. And what I recognize is when in that playfulness, if I actually took it serious, because what I've experienced in my own family is that sometimes people will say something to get you to react. They want a reaction from you. And so in that reaction, and I'm hurt from it because I'm taking it personal, then that shifts me out of a way of being that I actually really want to be, because I get less interactive. I kind of withdraw a little bit. I get quiet. And that's not really the real me. I love to be in there. I love to be fun. I mean, there's different parts of me, but I really like to be that interactive, in that interactive space. And so when I recognize that I take something personal in doing the work, it's, can I give that permission to someone to just be who they are? That if that's their way of being confrontational, or that's their way of being, that's the way they joke, and that's who they are, can I just come to a place of acceptance and not take it personal and own whatever little jabs that they did as truth for myself? Because and that's really the work for me. So it's every time I experience that, can I ask, is that thought actually true? If I'm suffering from it, is it 100% true? Who would I be without that thought? Who do I create myself to be, or how do I react when I'm believing that whatever thought they had of me is true? And when I recognize there's a shift in my being, then I can just be with that, and I can do the turnaround to it. And that is what I have experienced through the Byron Katie work. And I feel so honored to have been introduced to it because I use it every day, throughout the day. There are various things that happen in my life that I could be very insecure about. And when I can apply the work and do the inquiry, and I can just be in the present moment and create the here and the now, right here, to be the very best, and that includes me, then I end my suffering and I recreate my personal peace. I recreate the moment, which is how I want it to be, rather than as maybe I previously perceived it just moments before. And so it really does also allow me to take that word should, or they should have, if they loved me, they should have acted this way, or they could have acted this way. Well, what if that's their way of loving, but I'm receiving it differently? Can I give them permission to just be that and still love me and not judge myself? Because of what I found myself, it's also judging. And then I'm judging myself for judging them. And so it's like, okay, where can I just create peace here and now and just be me? What does that look like? And so I just love Byron Katie. I could go on, but I think I'm complete for now. Thank you. Thank you, Team Tuck, for nominating me to read this chapter, because this chapter has changed my life. Byron Katie has changed my life through loving what is, and her book, I Need Your Love. Is that true? It literally just blew my socks off. So thank you. Thank you.
So sorry, I had a coughing fit, so I had to mute myself. Thank you. Thank you so much, Tanya. You know, the thing that struck me as you were talking through everything was that as a member of Team Tuck and a friend, I see you do that. That is a way of being for you. And I experienced that through you. And then I am then inspired by your work and your sharing of those things. Excuse me, I have asthma. The sharing of those things, and it helps me to grow. So I thank you for your sharing. I see that in you. I see it in you every time I talk to you. So thank you for being that beautiful example for me, and for really, you know, showing me that there's a different way, that we don't have to cause our own suffering, that we can change our thoughts. I used to think that, you know, I was just, you know, life just came at you and you better just take it, whatever it is, bad or good, and that I had no control. And that when you realize that you do have control over your thoughts, there's a peace and a joy that has come over me because of that. And, you know, asking those questions, and the more you ask them, the more you catch them. Is that thought true? Is it really true? And especially finding for me lately, like you said, when other people are judging you, or you feel judged in some way, you know, asking yourself, well, what I do is, Maria, is that true? Is that your truth? Or is that something you've held on to for a really long time? And it isn't your truth anymore. So I love that. Thank you, Tanya. Beautiful share. All right, looks like people are as inspired as the readers were today. So let's get on to share. Mr. Dave Orton, we would love to hear from you.
Thank you. Can you hear me okay? Beautiful. Thanks, guys. I love the work of Byron Katie. And one of the things that I love about it is that it is a beautiful place to come from for self-forgiveness. You know, the thoughts particularly that I have of judgment against myself or against others, seem to be the ones that most easily evaporate in the face of these questions. Yesterday, I must have not been feeling very well because I mistook our beloved Ipek for Fari. And I said that on a meeting. I called her Fari, and I'm like, oh my gosh, what has happened to me? So Ipek, I love you. Please forgive me. I'm sorry. Ho'oponopono, please. And I'm human, and those things happen. I make mistakes. I stick my foot in my mouth, metaphorically speaking. I should all over myself. And David, I love that Tony Robbins quote. I've heard it elsewhere, but I think he was the first one that said it. And what I notice is that the work helps me return to love. And while I've been sitting here, I got a little nudge to write. And what I wrote was, I love you, Dave Orton. I love me, Dave Orton. I love him, Dave Orton. I love us, Dave Orton. I love you, Teresa. I love me, Teresa. I love her, Teresa. I love us, Teresa. I love you, Nan. I love me, Nan. I love her, Nan. I love us, Nan. Great to see you here, Nan, by the way. And I got to all of you. Shauna, Liz, Elizabeth, Amy, Ipek, Andrea, Martha, Renata, all of you. And I'm sidestepping the acknowledgement rule here, but I love you all. Thank you, Tanya, for allowing me this artistic thing. And that's basically what I wanted to share, is that the work returns me to love, and I love you. And that is what I wanted to share. Thanks, guys.
Thank you, Dave. The work returns me to love. I love that, because that's who we are at our core. When I began to catch my thoughts, I realized that who I am at my core is love. So when you hear those negative things come through your head, I started to recognize that's not me, because that's not love. So I love how you have said, return to love. Thank you, Dave. It's beautiful. All right, Miss Nan. I'm from the South, so everybody's Ms. and Mr. Okay. So she's Miss Nan.
Okay. Hi, everyone. Good morning. First of all, when I start, I want to just, I want to thank everyone for your presence last week as I came on the call quite unnerved, and it was about a decision that I was making. And through the course of the day and speaking with people and listening to my own heart, it was a clear no. And that's why it was so unnerving to me. And so once I realized it was a no, I'm like, okay, I know what's going on now. And I feel so thankful. So I want to thank you for your love and loving space with me last week. Like Dave said, Katie's work is a return to love. And I was in the Salt Lake City event back in 2006 that Steve invited me to, and it made such a huge difference with me, and made such a huge difference in different experiences and thoughts that I've had in my life. And so for me, it's simply another reminder again of like Tanya said, I use it daily. It's like, what a wonderful thing to use daily. So it's just simply a lovely reminder to like, you're right. Is it true? Nope. It's not true. Anyway, I love returning to love because that is who I am. And thank you. Thank you. It's really lovely to be here today.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Nan. Return to love. Return to who you are in your being. Return to who we were created. I believe we were created to be love for each other, for ourselves and each other. So thank you, Nan. That was beautiful. All right, Miss Anne Marie.
Thank you so much for today. And I'm unfamiliar with the works of Byron Katie. I think I bought the book and stuck it in a drawer. And but the last comment is what I've taken away from this group and from this day is I love the way, what is it? I love the way you see me, and I love the way you I see you. And I've turned that inward. Like I tell myself that I love the way I'm looking at my own self. Vice versa. I wake up in the morning and say, I love you. And I say, I love you too. And I'm not bipolar or schizophrenic, but I've come into the awareness of who I am, right, as love. Now, Tanya mentions the negative thoughts that come into our mind. And Team Tuck, before we got on this, we were talking about the difference in the word usage of the word gas versus fuel. Now, if you think about that in negative thoughts, are those negative thoughts gas that will pass through you? Or is it fuel that you're feeding your energy off of? So think about that. How are you accepting those negative thoughts? As fuel or as gas? Now, this returning to love, once you actually return there, which I'm standing in that, I hope I hold it longer than next Tuesday, right? Because we're human and we fail. But I got this net called Team Tuck to catch me like a tightrope walker. I will never hit the ground. And if I do, I'm like a cat and I will land on my feet. But I have an accountability partner for my 30-day challenge. You reached out to me from TUC. Can she also be accountable? I said, yes. And she wants to be accountable for love. And this week, she always wants to be more loving. She's so loving. I can't even imagine how much more full her heart can become to just seep out and eke out onto others. And I said, I want to ask you a question that you don't have to answer to me, but I want you to continuously ask you this for your action step this week. Are you loving the verb as in hoping versus the noun hope? If you're hoping, you never get to check that off your list. It's a never-ending action with no goal. Or you can have a pocket full of hope, the noun, and say, here, I have some hope I'd like to give you. I have some extra. Please have some of my hope. And so when it comes to loving, I said, in every act of your kindness, patience, and compassion this week, ask yourself, are you the noun or are you the verb? Are you love or are you loving? Because I look at people not as loving. I look at them as love. And the only reason I could do that is because I can finally look in the mirror and see love in myself. And after Game Changers last weekend with Devin Bandison, and he said, if you cannot see the divine in the eyes of the person standing in front of you, you will be looking for God outside of yourself for the rest of your life. And that coming home and that love is when we realize that the divine was in us all along, just waiting for an invitation to come out. And so I'm going to step into my truth. And I've apologized a lot of my life, being my worst enemy for so long. I would apologize for who I am, for being so talkative, for being so hilarious, for it being inappropriate crowds for my jokes, for talking too much, for stealing the conversation, for having high standards. I'm not apologizing. I'm going to live unapologetically in love for myself and in respect for others. And so there's where my growth is. There's that uncomfortable zone, my zone of possibility yet to become even more love. Thank you. I'm so complete.
Oh, Anne Marie, thank you so much. that. I love how you said, are you the noun or the verb? I'm going to take that away this week. There's my one of my golden nuggets, although there were many this today. But I'm going to think about that one. So thank you. Amazing. Looks like we have Miss Tanya. You have another thought, Carmen?
I do. It's really an extension from Dave Orton and Anne-Marie's, and in going back to love and love of self, whenever we have felt judgment upon ourselves and hoping to seek the approval of someone else or the love of someone else. I love the turnaround, and when we don't receive exactly what we're looking for, I love the turnaround there that Byron Katie uses and that I've used even on myself, because when at one point my thought was, it really hurts when someone doesn't listen to me or respect me, and I don't feel heard or seen. And I lived in a place of suffering there. But when I can turn it around and do the turnaround for myself, is I don't respect myself when I don't listen to me, when I don't see me, and when I don't love me. And then really, when I can be with that thought, then really, what does it look like then to be with myself, to respect me and to love me and to see me or to hear me? And then take action on that. What does it look like? What does it feel like? And to not to expect self to, or to even judge self for not doing it, but when we can be with that thought and really turn it back on ourselves and then be the action for ourselves, I honestly believe that sets the precedence of everything. That will set the precedence of how we love ourselves and how others will see us or love us as well. And so that's really been something that I implement and I think about. And every time it comes up, because it comes up, it still comes up. It's not like I just did the work and then I'm all good. No, like it still comes up again. And when it comes up again, then I do it again. And then to take action on what does it look like? What do I want to do? What does it look like to love me right now? What does it look like to see me or hear my needs right now, rather than expecting someone else to hear my need? So, yeah, I love Byron Katie. If I haven't said it and you haven't heard me loud enough, I love Byron Katie. So thank you for letting me share again.
Sure. I just have one question. You love who? No. Byron Katie.
So good.
Oh,
And I
yeah.
love me too because
I
of
know.
Byron Katie. Like that's been the whole transition. Like I love me better now through the
Yes.
work and through the inquiry. And that has been because I couldn't even love someone or see someone different when I'm stuck in the suffering. And
Yes.
I'll share a little story if I may.
Mhm.
My stepdad just passed 2 weeks ago. And my relationship with him growing up was a relationship that I felt shamed by him. I felt constantly being judged or put down by him growing up. And so I held in that. I held on to that for decades, literally decades. And when I could put this questioning into practice, and then actually be brave enough to have a conversation with him before he passed, I was able to heal that suffering. I was able to create clarity. I was able to hear something even from him that I would have never thought was true. But he was able to share it with me as well. But without being open to it, we shut it off at the door. So there takes a willingness. There takes a willingness to go deeper and to question the thought and really put it into inquiry and to do the turnaround. And so I feel very honored and blessed in this moment to have had that opportunity and that clearing with my stepfather before he passed. And I know many others didn't. but I feel, again, so grateful because I've been able to put it into practice, and I still do whenever it comes up. So again, thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Tanya. You know, you reminded me of how I began to forgive. Well, I thought I was going out to forgive my ex-husband, but it turned out I was going out to forgive me. And when I started the work, my ex-husband was, I had many stories of him, shall we say, and many of them true. But when I started to do the Byron Katie work, the worksheet is what I did on, you know, he lied to me. I think that was my question. And then you turn it around and you turn it back on yourself. When I had to do that, it like it was boom, like, oh, and it was that recognition of personal responsibility, that recognition that we are in charge, I guess is another way to say it. And once I began to realize that the forgiveness for myself was what led me to forgive my ex-husband and the 20 years of pure hell, and taking my own responsibility in that, and realizing, I think, like you said, you know, without loving myself, I wasn't capable of love. I just wanted him to validate me. And so, yeah, thank you. That reminded me of just how much Byron Katie has helped me towards forgiveness for myself and for those that I blame. Thank you. All right, let's see. EPAC, do you have something else you'd like to share?
Yes, thank you.
Thank you.
So everybody who shared like beautiful shares, and Tanya, it's so powerful what you said, and it triggered in me some thoughts which are, before I came across Byron Katie's work. I have been putting myself in the victim role a lot, apparently. Whenever I started implementing the work into my thoughts and my life, I realized that, wow, it's not about other people, it's about me. It's about who am I being when I believe that thought, and who would I be without that thought. And it made me realize that everything is actually about me. It's my processing everything starts with me. Like, if I don't love myself enough, I can't give enough love to others. If I don't respect myself enough, I can't expect others to respect me. If I don't have compassion toward myself, I can't demonstrate a good level of compassion for others. So that made me realize everything starts and ends with me. And when I give what I want to receive to myself first, then I become the energy, the magnet, the trigger in others to show me the same. So everything is about us. Everything starts and ends in us. And that's and everything we experience is the reflection of us on other people. So whatever we put out there comes back to us. So it has been a really eye-opening experience for me, realizing all this and then implementing it into my life. So thank you for giving me the opportunity to reshare. Thank you.
Of course. Thank you. Thank you. I love what Nam just wrote in the chat, which is, oops, now it disappeared. Hold on. I'm getting back. She just wrote no, where is it? Everything starts, no, where, hold on. Give me 2 seconds here. Everything is a reflection of us, which is just what you said right there in that capsule. What we see, what we think, what we hear. Thank you, Ipek. Beautiful. Miss Teresa, I'd love to hear your thoughts. Can somebody? There you are.
Thank you. And let me get rid of that hand or it'll stay up there all the time. So I would like to share what I understand in this, and it kind of dovetails on Ipek's comment. And there is only self. There's nothing else but self. So you either exist and in a state of love, or you're existing in not a state of love. But when you are in either of those things, we generally put somebody else's name on it, but the origin is only self. It's only ever self. That can be either a nightmare or that can be a wonderful awakening. For me, it's the beauty of the awakening of that. And I give myself credit for that being awake now, but it was hearing the words of Katie. The origins of her words are my own origins, and she would want you to know that because she would take no credit. Once heard and once embodied in self, it is self. There's nothing else. There's just nothing else. So when you're looking at a day that's really cruddy, you might want to go inward, because it's not somebody else bringing that to you. It's your perception of their place in your world. Might want to clean that up a bit. I have often said, and I'll say it again, doing the School for the Work was the purest form of repentance that anyone could ever perform if you want to clean up your slate completely, because you leave there completely accountable for self. If you have embraced the work, and once you embrace the work works within you. It promotes itself over and over and over again. You can't go backwards. There's only forward for that. That's the only way you can go. And a couple of things within the work that are the most meaningful to me, that are what keep me straight, are a couple of other statements that are Katie's that come on that same worksheet. I look forward to, and I am willing to embrace any situation that comes. That is, each one is a learning. And I'll just give you a little personal thing here. I've had nearly 2 decades. It's no longer present for a half a decade now, which is wonderful, with my youngest son. A history in his choice in his life with drug abuse and incarceration, all of the things that follow that type of an addictive behavior. And in the course of that, I was fortunate to go to the School for the Work. And it was through that I live in a lot of the peace that I have now, the joy and the peace. First of all, to learn who this is that dwells in this flesh body. And she's lovely and she's joyful and she is love. But for my son, my youngest son, and he definitely is so dear to me, so dear, I learned that it doesn't matter what his life does. It's his life. And so one needs to determine who you are in the lives of others. So his life may once again pick up addiction. It may pick up other things because it is his life. It is his story. But I don't need to be concerned about that, because the commitment to him as his mother will always be that. So his life might change, but my commitment to him and to myself will never change. That way you're secure in where you're at, but to think that another self is the origins of your happiness or your growth or anything else, it is such a false premise to build things on. So there is only self. And that's where all of the work gets done. And that's where the world is in self. I love that I had the opportunity in its purest form to go to the school for the work. Anyone who isn't familiar with Byron Katie, it would be a journey that I would say is good for you to take. I have in my book on this chapter as a reminder to myself, and I'll just read it to you. In 2006, while I was somewhere in the nightmare that I had named life, I heard the clear, soft, beckoning voice of Byron Katie via my brother, Stephen. I followed the sounds of her, first to Vancouver, Washington for a 3-day on relationships in the spring, and then in October attended the 9-day School of You in LA. It was there that I rediscovered the wonder that is me. It was joyful, a joy that is with me now. You are the sweetest friend, Katie, and I love the story that I have of you, and I love the story that I have of me. And I love that she taught me happiness is our birthright. Thank you, Katie. And thank you for listening to me.
Thank you so much, Teresa. I resonate so much at this point in my life with what you're saying about the personal responsibility. There's such a freedom in knowing that there's only self. I find freedom in that. And unbound. I don't know if that's quite the right word, but in that I feel untethered, unbound, and the possibilities are endless because it is only about self and the possibilities that we create. So that was beautiful, Teresa. Thank you. Ooh, looks like Elizabeth has her hand up. Love to hear your thoughts, hon.
Yes, thanks to everyone just for all the sharing. It's always so deep and so personal and so beautiful. It moves me. And sometimes I forget what we read because the sharing is so beautiful. There's so many things that came up for me. I'll just mention a few. The very first was about the chapter itself. When I first read it, I really had only read a Byron Katie book probably 10 or 12 years ago. And because a client of mine had said, have you heard of this? And I hadn't, and I had to go find out about it. It was something wonderful. So it had been a really long time. And when I read that chapter the first time, very recently, I remember just going, where's the questions? What's the conversation? I turned the page. I'm like, where's the rest of the chapter? And for me, that is one of the joys of this book is, there's so many breadcrumbs and we just get to pick up the ones that we want to go follow. And I found my Byron Katie book and looked at the questions and I'm listening to all of you. And I just love how the book is structured about me and you and all of us and anyone who reads it. I love the magic that is these beautiful, powerful moments that are just dropped in there, these beautiful gems. So that I recognize in this chapter. It's like, I want more. Well, I'll have to go get it. I'll have to go find it. I'll have to, it's, I love that. And for me, my theme recently is self-love. And so many of you mentioned, this self-love and how powerful the idea of giving to ourselves first. And, the things that allow us, the tools and the practices that allow us to give to ourselves first. And I'm just so grateful for each of you for sharing with me how you do that. And I am embracing that for me
and remembering, the truth of my being, who I am. And I do say joy is my nature. I think someone said it was their birthright. It's like it's who we are. And someone else posted in the chat, who would we be? I think it was Andrea. Who would we be without those thoughts? Free. We'd be free. It's freedom. It's complete, utter freedom, because our birthright is this peace, this love, and this joy that's underneath. And we free ourselves, and there it is. It's all there. So being a part of this group and reading the book and sharing in this profound way is so uplifting for me. So I'm just so grateful right now. So blessed. Thank you.
Thank you, Elizabeth. Thank you. I completely agree with you. It's such a powerful time. I consider this me time. Like, this is like me time. This is time for Maria. And so sometimes you think, oh, I'm tired or whatever. No, it's me time. It's a book reading. So because you are transformed each time, not only by the book, but the beautiful souls that meet with us, all of you. It's amazing. Oh, I'm getting goosebumps. All right. I used to say I get the willies, but I had a student who was named Willie. He's like, don't say. So I have goosebumps. All right, Dinah. I'd love to hear your thoughts on this.
Thanks, Maria. Yeah, I just want to add to what you said about the group. It's also such an incredibly safe space, which has just been golden for me. I always underline at the beginning, when everyone's reading the front and the back and the first two pages, which stands out to me. And this week it was, who do I need to be a more loving person? And I don't know if more people, and Steve Hardison as well, has posted more about love and self-love in the group this week, or if I've just noticed love this week. But self-love is like I'm constantly understanding what that means. It has so many layers to it. Byron Katie had a big impact on me last year, and I shared that last year. I had nothing to do on a beach in Greece. I was waiting for a group to arrive for a course, a retreat that I went on, and I was a day early. And if you wanted to sit on the beach, there was no Wi-Fi, and I'd foolishly not taken a book. Well, as it turns, not so foolishly, because it made me listen to the audio of Byron Katie, chapter after chapter after chapter. And there's a certain section of the book, as you probably all know, where she just does one example after another. And as I was listening to them, I thought, no, that doesn't resonate. No. And then all of a sudden, like a sledgehammer, it hit me, and it changed my relationship with my mum, which was already really good. It just took out the but. I really love my mum and we have this great relationship, but it just removed the but and gave me so much understanding and compassion. And I realized my role and how I could change my role and what an impact that had. So I'm so grateful to Byron Katie, if only for that. But at the moment where it's affecting me is, I've said each week that there's something that I'm circling around, and I'm getting more clarity on it. And it's an experience in my 20s where things led to a big depression. And it felt that it happened in a moment. And it felt like my essence left my body from my heart center. I'll never forget it. It was like, shh. And then I was in this terribly dark place for a long time. And I realized this week, and focusing on Katie Byron, that it's about me shifting my perception of all those things that happened, that I had a role in it, that it wasn't these things that happened to me and poor me. It's how I play my role in that. and how I can shift that and heal that. And I met a lovely friend from this group on Monday, and until this point, I've spoken rarely about this experience in my 20s. I've healed so many things from childhood, discussed so many things, but this experience of depression, I've rarely spoken about it. And when I do, I've spoken about it with no emotion. And when I spoke to my friend on Monday, she asked me a really simple question. And she said, "Are you afraid of going there again? If you go into this in a healing way, are you afraid that you will experience that you'll go there again?" And I didn't have to answer her because it all came up through my body. And so self-love, shifting the perspective, asking these questions is such a beautiful, gentle way of going there. And Tanya, you said to me a few weeks ago when I said, I just want someone to help me step off the ledge, step off the cliff. And you said, but maybe it doesn't have to be that way. Maybe it can be small steps. And you said it in such a gently loving way that I thought, she's right. And that's what this work is for me. It's so gentle and so beautiful and so safe, that the power is with me to change something here and to heal something. And so I'm so grateful. I described myself this week to a friend as, since that happened to me, that I felt I've been swimming upstream on my own. And I have so many lovely friends and family, but that's how I felt for 30 years. And I don't know if anyone saw it, but Dave Orton posted a little video of the Boise River. I saw it this morning, and he's explaining how eddies work and how the water's going down the river, but an eddy forces a current and water back up, and it keeps going around. He likened it to lessons in our life, and how when we don't learn them, we go back up river, and then we come back and we can keep doing it. And I'm very visual, and it just hit me that swimming upstream, I've just been caught in that eddy for such a long time. So yeah, I'm just so grateful. Yeah, I'm complete.
Thank you, Dinah. I love how you said it took out the but. I love you, Mom, but. That really struck me as a beautiful thing when you can take that out. You know, I'm sitting here thinking, I want to apply that to myself. You know, taking out the but. I love you, Maria. Then the but comes in, right? So I think that I thank you for sharing that, because I'm going to add that to my daily about me. So thank you. That was really, really beautiful. All right, Miss Tanya.
Dinah, thank you so much for your beautiful share. That was so powerful. And congratulations, sweetheart, on your steps. Beautiful.
Thanks, Tanya.
Yes, yes. So I saw a couple of people in the chat where they are a little unfamiliar with Byron Katie, and they're like, where was the rest of the chapter? And so I know that Cassie had so beautifully prompted us in the beginning of this call to be present with a thought that wasn't serving us, or that really doesn't carry us into our greatness. And so I just wanted to ask a couple of questions around that if you'd like to go a little further with that, and you can take it on your own after this call as well. But if you have that thought that's not serving you and it is creating suffering within you, and you ask yourself, is that thought 100% undeniably true? The first question is that thought true, actually? And then to follow it up with, is that thought 100% undeniably true? Or can I absolutely know that that thought is true? And then the following question would be, how do I react when I think that thought? How do I live when I attach my thinking to that thought as being true? And who would I be without that thought? Like if you never even, if that thought could never have entered your mind, was never even planted in your mind to begin with, and you ask yourself that question, who would I be without that thought? And be there. Give yourself permission to sit there and be with what comes up. And then after you can be with that, then we have a choice. We can either stay in the suffering or we can be the opposite thought. Byron Katie often follows it up with, what is the opposite thought of that thought that's no longer serving you or that isn't serving you? And she plays around with those questions. And so I really do encourage everyone to, if you haven't already listened to or read the book on loving what is, or I Need Your Love, Is That True? And she has various others, but those two particular are a great way and an introduction to start with through her work. But what I love about it is that it's simple. It's not overcomplicated. It's not really a lot of concepts to kind of understand, but it is a deeper inquiry into your own thought and questioning the thought. And then, as Steve says, we're always creating. We're either creating what we want or we're creating what we don't want. And when we realize that we are attached to a thought that's no longer serving us, then we can realize that that is the reality that we're creating for ourselves. And we can recreate our reality by creating a new thought. And so that's what I love, love, love about this work. So I just thought I'd share those few questions. That way, if anyone wasn't familiar, you could go a little greater in depth and have an introduction to it. And so thank you for just such a beautiful, beautiful time together today. Thank you, Maria.
Thank you, Tanya. Thank you for sharing that. Yeah, what a beautiful time together today. Thank you. Thank you so much for everyone's shares. You bless me, and I thank you for that. And you make me think, and I really thank you for that. And this book really makes me think, and I'm really thankful for that. All right, well, my time is through, so I'm going to pass it to the beautiful and delightful Martha to bring us home for today.
Thank you, Maria. Thank you, everyone, for your beautiful and interesting and in-depth shares. I so appreciate it. They all touched me deeply. I love Byron Katie. I love her work. Tanya, thank you for reading today. Thank you for your insights, especially here at the end, bringing us to what the work is all about with Byron Katie. I love her book, Loving What Is. And also to EPAC and for David for reading today, the front of the book and the back of the book. So appreciate your participation. Cassie, great job today. Thank you for bringing us home first thing in the morning, afternoon, evening, wherever we are, just to bringing us into the community of reading this beautiful book, The Book of Being, entitled The Ultimate Coach. We will be back on Wednesday, November 29th at 10 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time or 7 p.m. Pacific Time. And we will be reading chapter 22, The Office. We are blessed to have Carrie Rikabaugh and Bina Bandali join us in reading this chapter. So we invite all of you to come and visit with us again in community on Wednesday, the 29th. Remembering that in January, we will be gathering, many of us will be gathering in Phoenix or Scottsdale, Arizona for the Ultimate Experience, January 26th and 27th as an anniversary to the first event that took place 2 years ago. If you have not gotten your tickets, please do so. We have a number of tickets available, beautiful and wonderful people that are going to be presenting. Amy's going to be the keynote speaker, so you would not want to miss it. And if you would like to hear or know how to get these tickets, we can certainly put the link on the chat. And then the Tuck Ultimate Birmingham 2024, the experience in the UK is May 25th and 26th, 2024. Again, it proves to be an incredible opportunity for us to join together as a group in within the Tuck community. And of course, there are other resources for all of us, the Ultimate Coach YouTube channel, the Coach podcast, the Ultimate Coach IG, the Ultimate Coach LinkedIn group, etc. So many of these that you can find on the Ultimate Coach group that can lead you to these different sites. Anything else? I think that is it. We have the afterglow after this. So if you can stay around and join us after this gathering, we'd love to hear from you if you'd like to share more deeply, or if you haven't shared and you'd like to share now. We will be off recording at that moment. May allow you the opportunity to be a little more freer in your sharing. So for now, we say good morning, good night, good afternoon. Have a beautiful day, and we'll see you on Wednesday night. So unmute yourselves and give us a greeting.
Hi, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank
bye.
you.
Thanks,
Thanks,
Thank you for
everybody.
being here.
Have a
Great
lovely
day.